As we've talked about Freaks, he is back in the Freak Nation. Before we went live, we were talking about the first time we had Trevor Bayne in here. It was on the back of a golf cart where I think you were headed to the Wood Brothers jet or somebody's jet at the time after you won the Daytona the Daytona 500 back in 2011. You've got some news that we'll talk about coming up here in a moment, but so much has changed for you, Trevor Bayne, since that first win. But more importantly, Trevor Bayne, you said you lost your voice because of the 72 hours you spent at the Daytona 24?
Yeah, walking around pit road at the 24, you're yelling a lot. And so I was not there with the team, so I didn't have the headset on and a mic to push a button. I'm yelling over race cars for the last 3 or 4 days. So my voice is pretty much gone. I did not hang around the full 24 hours or it would be all the way gone. So glad I got some sleep in there. But that was actually the first time I've been to Daytona other than for an oval event. So really cool thing to go see and kind of take view of.
Hold on a second, though. We heard a lot of that on the broadcast with Dale Jarrett. This was his first time to really experience it as well. Is there a greater appreciation or a crossing over of motorsports appreciations that's going on these last few years and into now I just find that interesting and I love it. Don't get me wrong, but I find it very interesting.
The exposure of motorsports, I feel like we're all kind of meshing together in our worlds. You see a lot more crossovers these days, or maybe we're throwing it back to the old days when you had guys that ran multiple series. But the interest is definitely peaking on the road course side. And I know we'll talk about it in a little bit, my transition into that road course world right now. But, it's really exciting to see the growth of all motorsports. I was obviously in my little bubble, not little bubble, a big bubble for NASCAR for so long that you don't really understand all the other forms of motorsports going on around you. So this year with my announcement, we'll talk about again. With that, I need to know more about road racing. And so I wanted to go down to Daytona, be around IMSA, spend some time with John Doonan, who's the president of IMSA, just learning about the different types of cars and, how do the rules work? And what about these bronze drivers versus gold drivers and, a pro team versus a gentleman driver team? Like, how does all this work together? And from a manufacturer side, it's really interesting to see how many manufacturers are involved. We saw so many different ones. And then you take in the fact that you have all different speeds of types of cars on the track, trying to keep momentum up as you're getting passed by a faster car or, all those different components I thought was very interesting.
Freak Nation, his name is Trevor Bayne, 2011 Daytona 500 winner. He's got some news to share with you, Freak Nation. But again, you keep pulling little nuggets out that I want to hit before we get into the Motor Club. You talk about what's interesting to me is you're a Daytona 500 winner. You've run for some of the biggest teams and some of the biggest races on the planet, Trevor. But you've never been to the 24. All this sports car racing is so new to you. How can you soak it all in one weekend and be prepared? I know everything there is about the GT, the LMP2. How do you do that?
Well, there's a lot more to learn. Don't get me wrong. I didn't learn everything, but I learned a lot. I did learn a lot while I was there. And the last couple months of my transition into the sports car world, I've been picking up little pieces. The first time I showed up to Flat Rock Motorclub, which again, I keep alluding to, I'm sorry. We're about to bring that up. So in my new position at the club, I've been exposed to a GT4 Club Sport or a Porsche GT3 Cup car or Ferrari Challenge cars. And I've been jumping in and out of these cars. And at first, I had no idea what I was getting in. Is a GT3 faster than a GT4? I just had no idea. It's like somebody that goes to the dirt track for the first time when they're like, why does this car have a wing on top of it? And why are they running sideways? That's literally how I felt at first. But now as we get momentum and as I jump in more cars, I'm just learning every single day. But one thing that transfers is just car control. Whether you're running a dirt car, whether you're running a road course car, whether you're in a NASCAR, the best guys have really good car control and understanding of how to maximize a vehicle. And that was the same at the 24. I'm watching these guys who are pacing themselves to run 24 hours and make a car last. And honestly, blown away at how hard they can push those cars for 24 hours and they hold together. But yeah, it's really interesting to just learn all these different elements of motorsports.
All right, let's get into it.
Exactly.
Well, now, I've spoiled it at least 6 times.
Yeah,
so.
The Flat Rock Motorclub is your new endeavor where you're going to be there as the go-to guy with instruction when some of these freaking billionaires roll in with Ferraris and Lamborghinis. and Porsches and so forth. Now you're the guy at this motor. How did this come up? Who made the call and the transition of being the instructor at this Flat Rock Motorclub in Tennessee?
Yeah, you would think, the way it would have happened was I'm at a racetrack and somebody approaches me. But believe it or not, about 4 years ago, it was 2019, at the end of the year, somebody came to my coffee shop and they said, "Hey man, there's this new racetrack they're trying to get off the ground in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. And they're having a city council meeting to try to help the community understand what it is and sign off on it and all these different things." They said, "Would you come and speak to what motorsports does for communities and how young people can get involved and how it brings, all these economics to a community?" And so I went to this, city council meeting, spoke a little bit, did some media, and, I left and I didn't think anything else about it. A couple of years later, Rusty Biddle, who's the founder of Flat Rock Motorclub, back up a little bit. That did not work out in that area. They decided, hey, this isn't the right place. And the city, had some restrictions. So they ended up finding land in Rockwood, Tennessee, which is where they landed now. Beautiful land, about 900 acres. And Rusty finally got this thing going about 3 years ago. They start grading and paving and doing all this stuff. And at about a year ago, he asked me to come out, check out the racetrack. Hey, you were invested in this early. You came out, tried to help us get it at Oak Ridge. Will you come see the racetrack and see what you think? So I went out last year just to scope out the first layer of paving and see how the track looked, and it was unbelievable. When I say this in probably every interview or anytime I talk to somebody, even in person, you have to see it to understand what it is. People are asking me is this a racetrack? Is this a country club? And the answer is yes. I mean, it is both of those things, but it's at a level I've not seen done before. I mean, really, it's one of a kind. They're innovating the way that hospitality and motorsports can work together in a club setting. If you think of the nicest country club you've been to with restaurants and a spa and all the amenities, that's what Flat Rock Motor Club will be. Our clubhouse will be done in about 12 months. The racetrack is completely finished. We're in the process of being homologated with the FIA to be a grade 2 racetrack. We've gone through all the steps so far to meet that. Where it's different is that there will be sections to the club. So right now the club track is completed, and that's for members only. People who want to come and buy a membership and be a part of it. Maybe they want to buy real estate there as well with a garage loft and have their cars on site and stay there part-time. That's what this first 3.5 mile track is for. The second phase will be a GP track, and that's where you'll see a lot more series start coming our way for competition. And that way we can have fans, we can have teams there. The members still keep their privacy and their access to a track. And, it's really unique in that. We also have a karting facility that we're working on currently. Hopefully we'll have that off the ground in the next 6 to 7 months where the general public can come in and you think about Trackhouse Motorplex in North Carolina and the way that they've helped grow karting. We hope to do that at Flat Rock, and we're in a great place there in the middle of Tennessee. So really looking forward to what we're doing. It's kind of been a snowball process for me. I dipped my toe in a little bit, and I just kept getting sucked in more and more because I saw how great this place was. And now I'm there as the head pro.
I think getting sucked in was a good thing because you sound very passionate about it. We're talking to Trevor Bayne, 2011 Daytona 500 winner, turned businessman, turned coffee shop owner, turned sucked in guy into this amazing Flat Rock Motor Club. And like you said, he's the driver pro. Well, I mean,
sucked in guy.
Sucked in dude. I mean, this is amazing. When people see clubs like this or they hear about clubs like this, they've been going on for over 10 years. And it's awesome to see them popping up. Texas, Arizona, California. A lot of motorsports just fans in general might think, oh, Thermal, they've had a couple of IndyCar races and, to a so-so perspective from some fan bases, I would say. But Flat Rock, you mentioned in there series of competition that may come your way. I was wondering about that. Might we see sports cars? We just had the 24 Hours of Daytona. Is IMSA interested? Who might we see there in the near future or the distant future?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, with the club track, I go back to that, this is a member track. So we want to make sure for those, we're around 75 members currently. We hope to grow that to 500 members and top out there. We want to get them on track as much as possible. So our guarantee is 200 track days a year for these members. That's where we're different, where we're not saying, hey, the track's closed for this corporate event, or maybe you get 1 day a week on track. 200 days a year on track for a member. That's a lot of track days. So we have to be very selective in what we do. And obviously we want to have high level races there. So whether that be HSR or IMSA in the future or WEC when we have the GP track, I think the opportunities are endless there. But we just want to make sure that we walk through that methodically and respect our members and their track time. And then also bring the value of having races at our track, because I think it is a world-class facility. The racetrack, I've talked about the amenities in the club and all that, but the track is unbelievable. And when I send people videos or they come out and see it, they're like, man, this is a European type track. The elevation change, we've got a big banked corner. Like there's all kinds of quirky components. The S's go up and down the hills. Like it's a really challenging and technical track. So people are not going to get bored here. It's going to be a challenge for them for a long time.
See, that's actually one thing I wanted to discuss that does make you a little bit different. You had F1 engineers come in and construct this place. I mean, this is a different level of a road course.
That's right. They had the group from Baku come in and oversee the paving of this racetrack. They had Tilka do the drawings and the renderings, and they made an Assetto Corsa file of this racetrack before it was ever running or ever paved, so that we could work on different things and change elevation or change corner angles. And they did a phenomenal job getting this track to the point that it's at. One of the most fun racetracks that I've been on. But I got to tell you, getting in these cars, getting in sports cars, it's kind of rejuvenating for me. I still love driving race cars every day and would still do it at a competitive level if I had the opportunity. So now to be an hour from my home here in Knoxville, Tennessee, to drive over, this Wednesday we'll have a track day, probably have 15, 20 members out there and get to jump in some Porsches and go make laps, and then also help these guys get up to speed. It's very rewarding. So it's a fun job.
Trevor Bayne, 2011 Daytona 500 winner. Now, a new adventure with Flat Rock Motorclub in Tennessee. When's the first time you're looking forward to looking at one of those drivers and going, Bizzachel, I'm a Daytona 500 winner. You listen to me, Jack.
Well,
does that happen day one when a billionaire walks up to you, tries to tell you what he wants? You go, no, I'm a freaking Daytona 5. I survived the madness. You listen to me. My name is Trevor Bayne, you happy bastard.
No, man. That's the coolest part about race cars is they humble you from day one. When you get in and the stopwatch doesn't lie. So I don't have to say that. These guys come in and, some of them are young guys who love cars. Some are 65-year-old, retired CEOs that still love cars and have them and want to get them on track. And they're like, hey, I'm just here to have fun. Like, I don't care if I'm 20 seconds off. I just want to have fun. And so I try to actually make that approachable. And that's probably the challenge for me at first is going from, last year I coached the Legacy Motorclub drivers. So John Hunter Nemechek, Eric Jones, and actually Coach Jimmie Johnson, 7-time Cup champion. It's like, how do I really coach you? But then you back up. So that's a really fine-tooth comb, really molecular type studying. And then you go back to someone who's done one track day and you say, okay, this is which foot you put on the brake pedal. I mean, all the way down to the basics of when to shift. It's very different. And so I kind of enjoy backing up and building that foundation. At first for me, I maybe was jumping in a little too fast, but making that coaching, making that learning approachable is a lot of fun. And it will help me on the NASCAR side as a coach. Now this year I'll be coaching about 5 development drivers for Toyota through the trucks and Xfinity. And so now I can kind of back up and build those foundations, even with those drivers, of things maybe they never learned along the way. So both of these work together really well. I'm excited about everything together.
This is awesome to hear, Trevor Bayne. Of course, look this up, flatrockmotorclub.com. You can see, one of his many new adventures. Again, visit him in his coffee shop. Go see him again at Daytona. But Trevor, we would be amiss if we did not discuss these helmets behind you. So many drivers. I don't know if a lot of people really understand this. So many drivers do helmet trades with each other. Is that for the TV audience? Is that what we're witnessing in the big A-frame behind you, or are those all yours?
Well, those are definitely more sweaty than the treadmill. They got a lot more use. So
yes.
The treadmill's there for looks. Those were actually used. But those are all mine. So the top one is the Daytona 500 helmet. This, I feel like a weatherman right now, but this orange one behind the orange and white is my very first go-kart helmet from when I was 5 years old. So that is one thing that I felt like was an art piece, and it kind of spoke to that whole season. And so I hung on to every single helmet minus 2 helmets. There was one JDRF Foundation helmet that we auctioned. And so it was a crazy like tie-dye helmet for the Wood brothers. So somebody has that one from an auction. And then this Henry Ford helmet here to my left, this brown one with the goggles, that's a remake because the original is at the Henry Ford Museum. So that's the only 2 helmets that I don't have the originals of. Otherwise, they're all here.
But do you have a Indy 500 winning helmet?
I don't have that. Just a Daytona 500. So you're one up on me.
I mean, Buddy Rice, actually, it's a replica. It's not Buddy Rice.
I was going to say, Buddy did not wear that helmet.
Actually, so there's 3 helmets. I forgot. I gave Tony Stewart one of my helmets on his Final Cup race. So that's the third one. Wow. So he's got one of those in his cool helmet display room. But yeah, helmet trades are a really special thing. And maybe we'll get into that one day. But for now, I thought it'd be cool to hang on to. I mean, I have 5 kids, ages 9, 7, 5, 3, 1. Pretty easy, just every other year. I can remember their ages, but you know, they ask me about them and like, what's this one from? And it just brings up stories. So I love that about these helmets.
Oh no. Is Trevor Bayne going to eventually driver coach his kids?
Maybe. So you bring that up, and that is a huge part of this Flat Rock deal to me. Like if my kids want to race, you know, really our options in Tennessee are dirt racing. And dirt racing is amazing. I love driving dirt late models and all those things, but it's a lot of work to get everything cleaned up and go to the track. And I remember, you know, being at the race shop 6-7 days a week if we weren't at the track, working on my go-karts. And then we traveled 45 weekends a year to race. And so having the road course here locally that I can just take my kids out, have a garage there. You know, if we want to go practice one day, we can do that. That's a big deal to me. So my kids do want to race. I've pumped the brakes on that for a long time, just from a time perspective. But this could open the door up pretty wide.
Listen, I can't tell a father of 4 anything he doesn't already know. 5, sorry. But our 11-year-old daughter yesterday in her soccer game went bananas, meaning she had so much internal craziness going on because she was having a crappy game, pulling on her hair, throwing her, doing stuff that she shouldn't. It's a life lesson, okay? If she was in a race car having that freaking breakdown because she couldn't pass the ball, or she going into turn 1, she hit the wrong. Bro, I don't envy you if one of your kids gets into a race car and has a mental freaking breakdown and just starts plowing.
We've got one that's super competitive. So he's like that. They play soccer and, you know, he's mad. But also when he scores, like he won't look up. He just puts his head down and goes down the line. So he's pretty funny. I'm interested to see what he does. But it's wild. No matter how much I've tried to like, hey, whatever they want to do, they're just genuinely interested in racing because it's what we watch. I mean, we watch Supercross. We watch, you know, all these sports car series now. We watch NASCAR every time it's on TV. And they'll be watching a restart and be like, why'd the leader take the top? Like my 7-year-old knows like lane choice and like they just pick up on all that. So it's pretty amazing how they're a sponge to what they're exposed to.
Mm-hmm.
No, Henley is not going racing, Crasher.
Come on. Never say never.
That's right.
Expose them to everything.
That's right.
Bro.
We're trying. Pickleball's a lot cheaper. There for a minute.
Listen, I put a freaking golf club in her hand 5 years ago and she threw it back at me.
Yeah.
Right.
No. What the hell is this? Idiots. I got to be quiet when I'm playing sports? No.
That's funny.
Well, buddy, this sounds like fun. Sounds badass. Give us all the rundown of where people can find out more about the Motor Club in Tennessee.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned it earlier, flatrockmotorclub.com. Go on, you're going to see a ton of renderings. And what I would say is, you know, the more we spend time on Instagram and social media, we see renderings all the time. And renderings are cheap, right? Like anybody can get a rendering done. But what's incredible is the fact that they have a paved racetrack. Curbing is in, drainage is in, gravel's in, guardrails. They bought all the barriers from the Nashville Grand Prix, like the catch fence, like it's there, it's real. And the clubhouse is out of the ground. So all the chimneys, the concrete is poured, the steel framing's going up. The garage lofts are within a couple months of being completely finished in phase 1. So this isn't just a rendering at this point. And I would encourage you to go to our social media as well to see that because there is some more current construction that you can find on there. But it's pretty incredible. We have an airport within 5 minutes of the track. So people ask, like, is this just for Nashville and Knoxville? No, this is really worldwide. For now, we've got a ton of members. You mentioned Thermal, people that are members at both clubs that have come over. So people are coming from all over the country to see this place, and it's worth it. I mean, it's world class. The weather, we're in the middle of January, and we've had multiple track days in one of our worst months of weather. So we're going to be on track year round, and it just gives people a lot of exposure to driving. So it's going to be cool. It's going to take some time to build all the things that we want to do there. And along the way, we just want to make sure we have world-class hospitality and help drivers have a great time on track.
Will Mahalo coffee be the featured coffee of the racetrack?
Well, we'll see about that. So believe it or not, I sold my business in 2022. I sold Mahalo Coffee Roasters. I'm still involved for the next few years. But when I was driving for Joe Gibbs Racing, it was a lot. We have at the time 4 kids. My wife's at home with them. I'm running a business. I'm working on Fox Sports, going and driving race cars. And we're like, hey, we got to pick a lane here. And I'm bad about that. I say yes a lot. And we talked about getting sucked in. This year, I look at it. I've got a partnership with Legacy Motorclub. I'm driving over tonight to go host their season kickoff at the Hall of Fame. I'm working with Fox Sports again on their ARCA and trucks broadcast. I've got driver coaching for a lot of Toyota guys. I have some endorsement deals. The Flat Rock Motorclub's pretty much full time. So it's wild around here. There's no lack of things to do. That's for sure.
Wow.
If Trackhouse calls next Wednesday and says, we got a car for you to run Cup.
Sure. Why not? I mean, these helmets still fit. So that is the thing that I love the most. And, I'm thankful and fortunate to still be around the sport, right? I tried to go away from it for 3 years with my coffee business and do something completely different. But it just kept pulling me back into the point that this is what I love. This is my sweet spot. And driving is the pinnacle of that. But anything else around the sport, the relationships we all have, it's just such a great community. And I'm lucky to be around it.
Buddy, good luck to you, man. This is badass. I think it's going to be a hell of a ride for you. Really just into a whole new field that you maybe never saw yourself get into. Running all these different types of cars is bananas for motorheads.
Yeah, it's pretty special. And, I'm looking forward to it. I had a conversation at Daytona about jumping in an LMP2 car to go do a test. And, those things are so different. Was talking to Brandon Jones earlier today when we were doing an iRacing session. And he went out to Sebring and drove Paul Menard's T8 or Trans Am car. And we were just talking about how insane all those different sports cars are, the braking capacity, even having things like ABS. That's something new for me. NASCAR cars, they don't have ABS. They don't have traction control. So it's a raw race car. And using some of these tools is a totally different element. And just, it's just fun to learn something new, but still in your sweet spot. So really thankful.
Freak Nation, Trevor Bayne, 2011 Daytona 500 winner, and a dude that just doesn't say no enough.
My wife will tell you that.
Buddy, thanks for doing this, man. Look forward to seeing you again.
All right. Thank you guys for having me.